The call came in just after midnight. At first, dispatch thought it was a prank. The voice on the line was shaky, whispering, like someone trying not to be heard. "I think there's someone buried in my backyard." The caller was a middle-aged man named Thomas Rivera. He lived alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood where the loudest disturbances were usually barking dogs or teenagers driving too fast down the street. Officers arrived expecting confusion, maybe a drunk caller, maybe someone who'd watched too many crime documentaries. Thomas met them at the door in pajamas, pale and visibly shaken. He explained that earlier that evening his dog had started digging furiously near the back fence. At first he ignored it, but the dog wouldn't stop. Eventually he went outside with a flashlight. That's when he saw something sticking out of the dirt. Hair. The officers followed him into the backyard. The soil near the fence looked freshly disturbed. One officer used a shovel from the garage and began digging slowly. Within minutes, they uncovered a human arm. By sunrise, the yard was surrounded by crime scene tape. Forensic teams carefully excavated the area. What they found was far worse than anyone expected. It wasn't just one body. There were 4, all buried in shallow graves, stacked in layers as if the ground had been opened and closed multiple times over the years. The victims were eventually identified as people reported missing over the last 5 years. A rideshare driver, a college student, a bartender, a woman who worked at a nearby grocery store. The obvious question was how multiple bodies ended up buried in Thomas Rivera's backyard. Thomas insisted he had no idea. He had only lived in the house for 8 months. Detectives turned their attention to the previous owner. The house had belonged to a man named Gerald Pike, 58, quiet, divorced. According to neighbors, he kept to himself and spent most of his time working in his backyard garden. Several neighbors even remembered him digging late at night under bright work lights. Pike had moved out less than a year earlier, relocating to another state after selling the house to Thomas. Police tracked him down quickly. When they knocked on his door, Pike seemed surprised but calm. He invited them inside, just like any cooperative homeowner might. At first he denied everything. But when investigators confronted him with the evidence from the backyard, something in his expression shifted. The calm faded. Then he smiled. Over the next several hours, Pike confessed. He described how he chose victims who were alone at night. People walking home, people waiting for rides, people he could approach without raising suspicion. He told detectives he brought them back to his house and kept them in the basement before killing them. The backyard, he explained, had been his garden. He said he liked to plant flowers above the graves. Neighbors later confirmed that every spring his yard was full of bright flowers. At trial, the courtroom sat in stunned silence as details emerged. Prosecutors revealed photos of the backyard from previous years. Rows of roses and lilies growing directly above where bodies had been buried. Pike showed no emotion while the evidence was presented. He watched quietly as families of the victims cried in the gallery. When asked why he buried them in his own yard, Pike gave a chilling answer. "I liked knowing they were close," he said. "It made the house feel less empty." After the conviction, the house was demolished. The land was cleared and left empty. But the neighborhood never felt the same. Some residents say the soil there never grows anything properly anymore. Grass sprouts unevenly, patches of dirt refusing to hold life. And a few neighbors swear that sometimes, late at night, dogs still gather near the fence line. Digging.